How's it going, guys? Welcome back to another video. My name is Eric, and this is not my garage. This is actually my neighbor's driveway. But today I'm going to be showing you guys how to replace a strut assembly on a 2007 Toyota Tundra. Now this process is going to apply from the years of 2007 all the way up to 2014. So I hope you guys find this video helpful. In front of me, I have some of the items and equipment that I used to replace the strut assembly on this Toyota Tundra. So starting off on the left hand side, I used a 14 and 15 millimeter gear wrench, an adjustable wrench, several sizes of flathead screwdrivers, and then also did go ahead and use 1/2 inch and 3/8 ratchets along with an extension. I used a breaker bar. And then if you don't have to use a breaker bar if you have an electric impact, but just in case you guys don't have one, you guys can use this. You're also going to need a torque wrench to torque everything down, needle nose pliers, a 5 millimeter hex or Allen key. I used a 19, 22, and 24 millimeter sockets and a big hammer. And obviously you're going to need a jack and jack stands. Before we start working on the vehicle, we're going to go ahead and chalk up the rear wheels. So I have a piece of wood on both sides of the rear wheels. And then we're going to go ahead and jack up the vehicle and put it on jack stands. And then we're going to go ahead and start working on the vehicle then. With the vehicle supported by jack stands, we're going to go ahead and now remove the wheel. These are going to be 22 millimeters. If you don't have electric impacts, you might want to loosen up the lug nuts while the vehicle's on the ground, because once you jack it up, you won't be able to remove them. This is a closer look at our strut assembly. So as you guys can see, there's a few things in the way that we need to remove first. We're going to go ahead and start off by removing this ABS wire that you guys see running up on the side of the strut assembly. For that, we're going to go ahead and unclip some clips that hold it to the knuckle. So we're going to do that first, and then we're going to go ahead and remove a lot of stuff out of the way. So to make it easier, what I found out to do is to remove the tie rod end, the stabilizer link, and then we're also going to go ahead and remove the upper control arm nut right here and pop this out of the way. The last thing that we're going to do is remove the fastener that goes through the shock absorber, and then we're going to go ahead and do that last, and you guys will see why in a minute. Go ahead and remove the 5 millimeter hex Allen bolt that you guys see right here. That is for the ABS wire. I'm going to be using an extension with the 5 millimeter hex. Go ahead and wiggle the ABS sensor side to side to remove it. Be gentle because you don't want to break the plastic connections. Next, go ahead and get needle nose pliers and remove these clips that hold down the ABS cable to some brackets right here. There is a few of them, but this is an example of what you need to do. So go ahead and just get the needle nose pliers and pinch the clips right here, and then pop this out just like so. And then you're going to do this through a few more brackets that are holding it down. Go ahead and pop the ABS cable out of the way. Next, I'm going to go ahead and remove the outer tie rod end. The reason we're removing this is because, in my experience, at least with doing the other side, if you remove this, it makes it a lot easier to remove the strut assembly. So we're going to go ahead and do this so that it's just easier to do it. I'm not exactly sure if you have to remove it or not, but like I said, I found this to be easier for me. So I'm using needle nose pliers and just popping the cotter pin out. Use a small flathead to remove the cotter pin all the way. Remove the 24 millimeter nut out of the way. If you don't have electric impacts or impacts in general, you're going to use a breaker bar to remove this fastener. Next, go ahead and get a big hammer and just hammer the side of the knuckle here to remove the tie rod end. You can also use a tie rod and separating tool, but what I've seen with those is that it actually damages the boot. So to be on the safe side, you guys can use this method and it works out pretty good. Next, we're going to go ahead and disconnect the stabilizer end link. We're going to remove this fastener right here. It's a 19mm. So that it's easier to remove the fastener right here, go ahead and use your jack to support the lower control arm. That's going to give you enough wiggle room to pop the fastener out. Next, we're going to go ahead and remove the upper control arm connection right here. Go ahead and get some pliers and remove the cotter pin, and then use the 19mm socket to pop this out. We're going to use the same technique that we used to remove the outer tie rod end right here. So go ahead and just get the hammer and hit the side part of this upper control arm connection. One of the last things that we're going to do is remove the fastener that holds the strut assembly to the lower control arm. In order to do that, go ahead and get a 22mm socket and put it on the nut side of the fastener and go ahead and remove it. To remove the long bolt out of the way, go ahead and put the nut back on. Go ahead and get a hammer and just hammer it out. Go ahead and finish it off by using a flathead screwdriver and a hammer. So as you guys can see, this is a pretty long bolt. So this is going to be a little bit tricky, but you just got to mess around with the jack and the lower control arm and you should be able to get this out. But this should be one of the last things that you remove, just so that you don't mess the threads up on the bolt. The last step that you're going to do is remove the upper fasteners that hold down the strut assembly to the top part of the suspension. These are going to be 14mm nuts. In total, there's going to be 4 nuts that you need to remove. Once you get to this point, we're going to go ahead and remove the strut assembly. I found out that the easiest way to do this is to go ahead and get somebody to help you out. And basically using 2 people, you're going to have somebody try to lift up the strut assembly and somebody use a flathead and pry the strut assembly connection on the bottom out of the lower control arm. Let me go ahead and show you guys how that's going to look. The easiest way that I can explain to you guys how we did that is by basically doing this. So while I was doing this, my neighbor was helping me pry out the strut assembly from the lower control arm, and it gave us enough wiggle room to remove the strut assembly. This is a comparison between the stock strut assembly and the replacement assembly. Now my neighbor did go ahead and get a full strut assembly, and I would recommend for you guys to do this as well, because this alone was around 80 bucks, but if you take in consideration all the bushings that go into the strut assembly, it's going to add up to more than $80. And also the springs actually will sag over time, so this is a good way to replace everything, and it's actually an affordable way to do it. And you also won't be messing around with removing the spring, which can be very dangerous. But if you guys were wanting to know how you guys can do this by replacing just the shock absorber itself, I have a video that shows you guys how to do this more in detail, so I'll go ahead and leave it up in the description so that you guys can check it out. To install the strut assembly, do the opposite of what we did to remove it. We're going to first start off by securing the fasteners on the top part of the strut. This is going to make it easier for us to locate the strut, and it's going to be easier so that we don't have to hold it up while we secure it in place. So as my neighbor does all the work, I'm just going to be sitting here and watching him.
See, I was going to pay him to do this, but I'm not paying him anymore. A little more.
So we're going to go ahead and put everything back together. I'm going to go ahead and do a time lapse of doing that. You're basically doing the opposite of what we did to remove the strut assembly, so it shouldn't be too difficult from here on. As you guys can tell, I finished putting everything back together. Now everything did go on there nice and smooth. There wasn't any issues that I noticed with this particular strut assembly. And then if you guys are curious about what type of assembly I got, or what my neighbor got, I'll go ahead and leave it in the description of my channel so that you guys can check it out. With that being said, if you guys did like this video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you guys are new to my channel, thank you guys for liking my videos and continuing to support me. I'll see you guys all in the next video. Peace out.